And we are live. Hi, guys, and welcome to the show. Welcome to another live stream with me, Troy Francis. And I'm going to talk about a few different things today. Generally, in regard to some reader questions that have come through, some different things today. Generally, in regard to some reader questions. Sorry about that, a little bit of feedback there. Yeah, so basically, I've got some questions I'm going to go through, but what I'm very keen to do is feedback. Sorry about that. So a couple of technical issues at this end. All right, listen. So I have got a few reader questions that I'm going to go through, but I'm very keen on this stream to answer any questions that you might have as well. And I'll be doing some of these streams throughout the week, so look out for them. I'm hoping to make them about the same time every day. So it's 4 p.m. UK time, which works out, I think, as 11, 12, 1, 2, 3, 4, like 11 a.m. EST in the United States. So I'm looking to make these streams at that time every week. So if you've got questions about dating, the dating scene, game, etc., or indeed anything else, but specifically related to charisma and dating would be helpful because that's the topic. Then just shoot them in. Just put them in the chat. Okay. Hi, Samir. Good to see you there, sir. How are you? Hope you're good. Yeah, just please put any questions that you got in the chat, and we will get to them within the stream because that's what this is all about. I just basically want to make this as user friendly for you guys as I possibly can. And here's a question. I'll get to that in a minute. Thank you very much, Alan. First up, I just want to say, I'm duty bound to say that Womanese by my good friend and colleague, Mr. Donovan Sharp, is currently open for enrollments, but it's only open until tonight at midnight EST. So that is basically 4th of August, 5 a.m., I think, UK time, or midnight EST tonight in the United States. You can get Womanese by Donovan Sharp. Now, here's the thing. If you're anything like me, I'm sure you've been in situations where women have said things and you feel like you've understood them, and yet that you kind of haven't understood them. Or it turns out that your understanding of what was being said was incorrect. Okay? So, you know, I'm sure we've all been there. There is the sort of truism that women are from Venus and men are from Mars, if you remember the name of that book title, which was actually aimed at women, I believe, a few years ago. So there is this idea that, you know, we come from different planets almost, and our communication styles are very different. Now, I believe, and I think this is empirically true, that we are more similar than we are different. I think that actually the differences between men and women are sometimes overstated. You know, we've got slightly different goals, we've got slightly different agendas, but you know, we're all we're all human beings, right? We all kind of, you know. So I think there's a lot that's complementary, but it has to be said that there is a lot that is different, particularly in terms of the manner in which we communicate with one another, okay? And that is why this course by Dominic Sharp, which is called Womanese, is incredibly valuable, right? I've been through the material. I was lucky enough to get taken through it by Donovan himself. And if you saw Dude Party at the weekend, you will have seen him taking us through some of the material. And it is fantastic. It really deciphers a lot of things that women commonly say. And this is useful both in terms of when you first meet a girl, to on the date, to whether you're in a long-term relationship with her. All right. So that course, it's open now. It closes at midnight tonight, EST. The link is below. I have a full disclosure affiliate link for it. So do hit that link below and have a look if you want to purchase the course. You also get over 50 hours worth of additional material from Donovan as well, which is awesome. Plus, you get a lifetime membership to his webinars that he does, his private group webinars that he does on Sundays as well. So if you know Donovan, used to write with me at Return of Kings. He's one of the OGs in the game. Very solid guy. Knows what he's talking about. His course is fantastic. It's really well produced. It's really informative. Have a look at that now, but you can only sign up between now and midnight EST tonight. And after that, it will close. Now, he's looking at reopening it in November, but that's another few months away. So you'll lose that time that you could have been improving. And also the price will go up. So if you're interested in Womanese and learning what women really mean when they communicate with us, then take action now. Hit that link below. Okay, anyway, that's enough of that little sales pitch, if you like, that little advertisement break. I also, of course, want to talk about my own course, and I'm not going to bang on about it now, but Charisma and Dating Academy is opening this Friday for new enrollments. Now, I've just bombarded you with the Donovan Sharp stuff, so I won't make this into a big advert, but just bear that in mind, okay? Charisma and Dating Academy opens on Friday, and you'll have 5 days to enroll for my course as well. So this live stream and the streams I'll do this week are kind of in the run up to that, if you like. So I wanted to kick off first with, I see some questions in the chat. So thank you very much, guys. I'll get to those in a second. I'm just going to have a quick look at a question that somebody sent in one of my private groups. Okay, so Mike, Big Mike, who is a great guy. He lives here in the UK, kind of near London. I've done some coaching work with him and so on. He says, I asked for questions in the group. And I Mike, if you're watching, I will get to this in more detail in the private group, but I'm going to discuss it here because I quite liked it. It was kind of interesting. He says, the moral catastrophe. Selfish alphas get laid. Virgin beaters keep society together. And he doesn't really ask a question, but I guess the implication of that is to say, you know, what gives, what's going to happen as a result of that. And this is something that comes up a lot, right? There's this idea, and I think it's largely correct, that the so-called alphas, or the guys who kind of just go and do what they want, take all of the spoils, if you like. They get all the good bits in terms of intimacy, in terms of the attention that they receive from women. And then the other guys who sort of toe the line, the beta guys, if you like, are the ones who are carrying the can, who are, you know, doing the responsible, correct thing, and are making society work. And I suspect we'd have to get Mike on here in order to explain exactly what he was asking with this. But I suppose maybe he just wanted me to talk about it or to give my thoughts on it. And yeah, you know, I mean, in many ways, that idea is correct, because people will often say, because I've been tweeting about dating and game advice and the renegade dating, you know, lifestyle and all this kind of thing, I'd often get guys tweeting back at me saying, well, that's all very well, but if everyone did that, if everyone was like that, then what would happen to society? You know, society would collapse. There wouldn't be any roads built. There wouldn't be any bridges built. Nobody would work. It would just be this massive, you know, sex orgy, and, you know, the beaters would try to kill the alphas, and all of the beaters would probably get killed, and all of the, you know, it would just be carnage. It would just be the end of civilization as we know it. And guys get very wound up about this stuff because I think, well, I mean, the sphere has become very politicized, hasn't it, over the last few years? And so people want to bring in politics into the equation, and they want to talk about creating a better society and all this kind of thing. And it seems to me that has muddled up the space quite a lot, because when all of this started and when I first got into this space, I mean, people weren't really trying to make a better society. They were saying, I want to have more choice with the girls that I date. I want to have more fun in my dating life, my sex life. You know, I don't feel that I have much autonomy. I don't feel that I have many options at the moment. I want to increase those options. And that's what it came down to. It was a fairly selfish, if you like, pursuit. You know, the idea was, I like girls. I would like to gain more intimacy with girls. How do I achieve that in an efficient manner? Okay. And that was kind of it. And then we got all of this political slants put on everything, and suddenly you had all these more sort of conservative traditionalist guys who were saying, well, hang on a minute, you know, the Playboy lifestyle is very evil and wrong and bad, and if you do that, then, you know, society's going to go to hell in a handcart and all of that. I would say that the argument, well, if everyone did that, then what about society, is a logical fallacy. And I would say it's a logical fallacy of the kind that is described as reductio ad absurdum. That is to say, taking something to its most absurd limit in order to try to bolster your point, right? Because we all know, the truth of the matter is that I could make a million videos talking about, you know, the renegade lifestyle, and I could make a million jokey tweets about degeneracy and all this kind of thing. And Tom Torero could make a million videos about the Black Sheep Bandit lifestyle and whatever, and say to guys, listen, just don't get, you know, just go out, meet different girls, don't be monogamous, you know, don't work for the man, don't work for corporations, go your own, you know, do your own thing. You know, you could make a million videos about this subject matter. And what proportion of guys do you think would actually do it? The proportion of guys who would actually do it is very, very low. Because just like with game, just like with dating, the proportion of people who actually take action on it, and I'm sorry to say this here, I'm not being negative and I'm not being disparaging to people who are watching this who do take action, but the truth of the matter is that the proportion of guys that actually take action and go out and do the approaches is really, really small. I mean, how many guys out there do you think have done 1,000 approaches? You know, I mean, how many guys do you think have done 10,000 approaches? How many guys do you think have spent years going to nightclubs and bars and other nightlife venues every single night of the week in order to meet different girls and going around the club and, you know, having different interactions and getting rejected and suffering the slings and arrows of all of that? I mean, how many guys do you think have actually done that or have actually experienced that? It's very, very few, okay? And so the same thing applies, really, if you're saying to guys, well, listen, don't buy into the system, you know, live your own, go your own way, not in the MGTOW way, but you know what I mean? Create your own lifestyle. You don't have to work for a corporate job. You don't have to work for a corporation. You don't have to get married. You don't have to buy into societal conventions. You can do your own thing. You know, you can be non-monogamous. You can meet many different partners. You can do whatever you like. Why not do that? It is absurd. And I think the people who bring this criticism know that it's absurd that people are actually going to do that. The truth of the matter is the vast, vast majority of people are going to follow the societal pattern because that's just what happens. That's just how things are. So we aren't going to see this overturning of society where suddenly you've got all these kind of dudes who've watched Rule Zero or something and they've become incredibly alpha, and now they're out approaching and they're taking all of the, you know, the resources and all of the women for themselves. I mean, it's just not going to happen. Okay, so you might as well not worry about it, because the stuff that we say when we make this content is maybe what we believe or we enjoy, or the kind of lifestyles perhaps that we forged up for ourselves. But I don't think anybody's under any illusion for one moment that it's going to become a national, international kind of movement and it's going to destabilize society. So I'll just go back to what he actually said. Alphas get laid, virgin betas keep society together. Well, that will probably continue to be the case. But what I don't think will happen is that we're going to see civilization fall apart off the back of it, because I also don't think that it's the differential is really going to increase that much. I mean, the people that we are directing this content at, you know how they talk about there's a top 20% of guys, and that 20% of guys, they get all the best girls and they have all the best opportunities and blah, blah, blah. And then you've got the 80% who don't. Okay. There is a very, very small sliver of people who can move from the 80% into the 20%. And it is doable. You know, it is doable to move from the 80% into the 20%. Okay. But most guys are going to do it, and aren't going to do it. And the number of guys who are going to make that move is very, very small. Okay, who are going to have the persistence and frankly the desire, but the persistence, the tenacity, the hard-headedness, the ambition to make that jump. All right, and the rest of the 80% are going to remain as the 80%. So, you know, to all intents and purposes, we might as well not worry about what happens if everybody jumps into the 20%, because it's not going to happen. And by definition as well, it's only going to push the bar of entry up, isn't it? Because if everybody jumped into the top 20% segment, then that would be 100%. And then within that, it would just push everything up. Then you'd have a top 20% of that. So, it's not really something I think we need to worry about, really. But I think my focus has always been on having the best possible life that I can and encouraging people who watch this stuff to have the best possible lives that they can. So in a sort of Ayn Randian sense, this is about positive selfishness. This is about objectivism, right? So, don't worry too much about, society and what's going to happen and all the rest of it. I mean, society is doing a very good job of tearing itself apart now anyway. So we don't need to worry about that. What you need to worry about is your own development and how you can get the best possible deal out of life that you can. Okay, so that's some thoughts on that. Anyway, I just wanted to talk about that. Also, as well, something I've been thinking about recently, which is kind of interesting. If you follow this space, the one constant of the dating coach game, whatever you want to call it, space, is that everybody thinks everybody else is a fraud. Okay, if there is one thing that unites all dating coaches, whether they be UK based, American, Australian, European, wherever, Russian, wherever it is, everybody is suspicious of everybody else, except for sometimes you'll get little alliances between people. So I've got alliances with people like the Raw Zero guys, for example. As you know, I have an alliance with Tom Torero, who I'm good friends with, and I consider to be a great guy. And he's I've seen him in action. He has got the skills, right? So I have these alliances with these people, and then there are other people that I don't have alliances with because either I just don't know them, I've never met them, or frankly, I think what they say is suspect in some way, and I just don't follow along with it, right? But what I try to avoid doing, and I am guilty of this sometimes, so I'm not claiming to be completely whiter than white and innocent here, but what I try to avoid doing is to just slate other people and call them frauds for the sake of it. Because, to be honest, I don't really know what the point of that is. I don't see how that's really helpful to anybody. Now, the people who do spend a lot of time slating other coaches and slating other players and everything will say that they're doing it in order to help guys, right? Because they will say, look, this person is a fraud. He needs to be called out because, and if I don't call him out, if I don't make this video or write this blog post or do these tweets calling this person out and people like him out, then these poor, innocent, naive guys are going to get taken in by this charlatan. And so it's down to me to do the calling out, okay? And it seems to me that this is a kind of white knighting, really. I mean, we talk a lot about white knighting in this space, don't we? You know, guys who are online going, "Oh, I've got to look after these women. I've got to," or you're in the club, and say you're talking to a girl, and then a guy comes over and he's like, "Oh, you all right, miss?" And he's white knighting for her. He's trying to protect her from the evil, player that he considers you to be. And actually, you guys were probably having quite a nice conversation and it was all fine because that woman has autonomy. Okay. She's intelligent. She is able to assess the situation herself. She's able to, to take the necessary precautions that she feels to need to take herself. She doesn't need some dude stepping in. And of course, we know that the real reason that those guys do the white knighting is because they want to receive the romantic and sexual attentions of the woman themselves. Okay, so it's not really that they are concerned that the girl is being, that something bad is happening because this guy is a player and he's not to be trusted. They don't really care about that. What they care about is that they hopefully then get in the picture and they are possibly more likely to get permitted sexual access and intimacy themselves as a result. And this is exactly the same as what these guys who slate other coaches and other game content creators are doing. They don't really care whether other people are getting ripped off, whether other guys are getting hoodwinked by these so-called frauds or whatever. All they care about is creating a bit of noise so that they get more traffic, And the classic shill way to do that is by attacking somebody who has a bigger audience than you. So a lot of people have used this technique in the past. Rollo Tomassi gets this a lot, by the way. A lot of people will step up and take issue with things that Rollo Tomassi says or writes, not because they're really bothered about uncovering the truth or anything like that, but because they want to advance their own standing on social media. So they get more well-known, they get more eyeballs on them, and ultimately they make more sales, they make more money. Okay, there are people who have built their whole careers, if you could dignify it with that term, by slating Rollo Tomassi and things that he's written. Okay, so it's a very, very old trick in a very old book. Yeah, these people don't really care about the guys that they're white knighting for. They just want more attention and more money for themselves. And of course, you know, male ego, let's face it, is a very powerful thing. And so there's also just a belief that if people aren't doing it like I'm doing it, then they're doing it wrong. Okay. And that's what a lot of this seems to come down to. You know, you get guys who are very ego invested in this space, and they have a particular way of doing things. You know, they have a particular style, and they just believe that everybody else is wrong. You know, if you're not doing it exactly in this way that I invented back in 2004, then you're clearly a fake, you're clearly a charlatan, even if the guy that they're claiming to be a fake and a charlatan is very clearly high value. Even if the guy that they're claiming pays prostitutes for intimacy is very good looking and very articulate and very well dressed and has clear, good, dominant demeanor, etc., 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 they will still claim that the only way that this person has any female attention is because he's paying for it. You know, it's nonsensical. It's clearly nonsensical, because you look at the people that get criticized, and I think anybody can look at a guy and think, yeah, he's well put together. He clearly has something going for him. This is the sort of guy who is, you know, if I had to put money on it, I would say it's very likely that he is, you know, gaining female attention. Okay. Now, I know that's not always the case. There are exceptions to that rule. But you know what I'm saying? I've seen some prominent people criticized recently, and you look at them and then you look at the person who's doing the criticizing and you think, well, hang on a minute. If I had to put a bet on who is more popular with the opposite sex, I'd probably bet on them, to be honest. Now, just because they're not playing the game in the same way that you are, in the same way that you recommend, you know, Tom Torero did a podcast or a video on this once, and I think he called it don't criticize the hustle, or, you know, respect the hustle, or something like that. And the argument was basically to say, look, there are different ways of doing this. Okay, there are different ways to become attractive. There are, you know, and just because somebody's doing it differently to them, it doesn't mean they're a fraud. They're just doing it differently. I mean, you know, okay, sometimes you get people who are very clearly fraudulent. There's just something off about it and everything else. But I think, and as I was saying actually to John of Bulldog Mindset the other night on that interview, if you happen to see that, we were actually talking about this very issue. And in my view, instead of thinking, well, this person's a fraud and like putting up the hatches and everything, it's more profitable to think, well, is there something that can be learned? Or is there something interesting about this person? Is there something that I can glean from this? Okay. And if there isn't, well, fine, you know, move on. But if there is, then just because they're not doing things in exactly the way that you think they should be done, or exactly the way that you teach or whatever, live and let live, man. I mean, that's just, you know, people do things differently, and that's fine. There is not just one way to be attractive in the modern world. There are different ways of doing it. Different things work for different people as well. That's the other thing. I mean, some people do day games, some people do nighttime stuff, some people just do dating apps. Well, you know, if you get the result that you want to get, then so what? You know, it's not like to be criticized. Instead, it's more like, okay, so what can I learn? What can be gleaned from this? What valuable lessons can I take from this? Okay, so that's just a bit of a rant on that slightly meta subject, because it refers to the industry as opposed to the the craft and the practice of social skills, if you like. But I think it's important because it does annoy me a bit when I see people just slating others. And, you know, now all of their content is just slating other people. And it's like, well, what's the point of that? Why not just make content about something else? You know, if you just hate everybody, then it sort of becomes meaningless, really. You might as well just give it up and go and do something else instead, you know? Anyway, that's my take on that. Let us go through and have a look at some of the questions. Okay. What's going on? Who is bashing game? What's the fight? So, Alan, I probably just kind of covered that before. I mean, I'm not referring to any particular person. There are a number of people who've done this over the last few. I mean, it goes on all the time, right? There's a number of examples of it I've seen recently, but it's just, you know, it's just part of the course. And to be honest, it's, you know, in any industry where there is competition, you are going to get this kind of thing happening. And particularly in a space where it's unregulated, really. I mean, data, you know, social dynamics, dating coaching, these are, you don't go and get a certificate in it. You know, you can't say, well, I've done my, you know, I've done my master's in dating coaching and here's the certificate. You know, it doesn't work like that. So clearly there's some room for error, and people will exploit that by basically bad-mouthing their competitors. But I always quite liked the RSD route with this. So Owen of RSD would never badmouth other people. You know, he would just say, yeah, I'm sure they've got some good things to say. And anyway, here's my stuff. And he would just move on. And I think actually that is the most healthy way of doing it. Now, I've certainly fallen into the trap of bad-mouthing people from time to time, and I'm not particularly proud of that. But I don't think it's really ultimately, you know, when I pull back from it, and I do pull back from it a lot, it's because fundamentally I think, well, what value is this really giving to the audience? What value is this giving to anyone else? It's not really. You don't want to hear me slagging off some dating coach. I mean, so what? That doesn't help you. It might be kind of fun. It might be kind of red meat, but it's not really helping anybody. So anyway, that's that. All right, now, Moan says, I was on a second date with a girl. She showed physical compliance. However, I brought her to the Airbnb, spent an hour. She urged to go back. Total time spent was 3 hours. What went wrong? Thanks for the question, man. And thanks for watching, because I know you watch quite regularly and comment and so on. It's hard to say, really, unless, not having been there, I'd need to know more information. It's very, very hard to say without knowing more details, I'm afraid. I mean, it could be anything. It could be any number of things. It could be that you were so physical compliance. So clearly, I don't know if maybe you made out, you were kind of touching, maybe you're kissing and so on. So that all sounds fine. You were moving things in the right direction. Maybe, you know, you didn't show enough value. Maybe she didn't feel enough comfort. You know, maybe you tried to push it too quickly. You can fall on that hurdle as well. You know, maybe it was her time of the month. You know, I mean, it could be any number of things, to be honest. I mean, generally speaking, it tends to be, he's got another one here, actually. It tends to be when people don't lead, you know, and they don't push the button. But it sounds like you were doing the right things. So it's kind of unknowable. And this is why you need to be working volume, and I'm sure maybe you are, but you know, you need to have a lot of options out there, because this kind of stuff, it just happens sometimes. You know, if she's, you know, so now, is she amenable to another date? If she is, then take her out again. If not, you have to move on. There's not always a definitive answer to these things. You know, you can try and learn from them as much as you can, but in the end, sometimes you just have to move on. I texted her a few times after the date. Is it a mistake to text a girl after she's shown disinterest? I would probably leave it for a bit, because, you know, you didn't get the outcome you were looking for, and it seems like maybe her signals were a little bit mixed. So I wouldn't necessarily be keen to, you know, texting her the next hour and going, "Oh, are you all right?" kind of thing. I think maybe just pull back a little bit, but no, I don't think it's a massive mistake. I think here's what I would do. I would probably leave it that day, and then a day or so later, you might want to then sound her out for another date to see if there's compliance, if she wants to come out on another date. If she doesn't, then you can be pretty sure that the game is lost and you move on to the next thing. But I don't think it's a terrible thing to do. But I wouldn't be too keen after what happened. What Tony says, what is the most efficient and fastest way to increase your charisma? How can you gauge your progress? Well, you have to join Charisma and Dating Academy, which opens on the 7th of August until the 11th of August. So that's over this weekend. And then you will gain charisma extremely quickly. And because we do live webinars, so we can live webinars after the course, after the enrollment period is finished. It's really, really good. The only way to do okay. You okay. Yeah, okay. Sorry about that, guys. A little bit of a technical hitch on this side. The fucking damn internet over here is really, really bad. But we are making some big changes in terms of quality. So apologies for this, and thanks to the few guys who've hung on and stayed with me. We'll see how this goes as we go on. So let's have a look at some other comments here. So JD says, based on what I've seen, it appears that Night Game is, specifically bars, has been kneecapped due to the antisocial regulations. Day Game is probably your best bet at the moment. I think in general that is the case. But having said that, I think it depends really where you are, because here in London, the night scene has woken up a bit, actually. Clubs obviously aren't open. Bars are open, though. They are tending to do stuff outside. So in the centre of London, they've got a lot of like activity outside of out in the street. Basically, they're putting up tables and things in the street. And to be honest, it's kind of mayhem. Like central London, it's sort of mayhem at the weekends over there. So I think Night Game there is absolutely doable, absolutely possible. I think in most cities, particularly in Europe, daytime approach is absolutely fine. So it's going to depend geographically, like where you are and what the situation is locally. But I mean, over here, I think things are definitely getting better for sure. AM, your videos are refreshing, rejuvenating, and invigorating to the mind and spirit. Thank you, sir. Except when the internet goes. I've received plenty of masculine nourishment from your channel. We love you here in Africa, boss level, sir. Boss level. Thank you very much, sir. I very much appreciate that. That's awesome. So, thank you. Reboot your modem. Yes. All right. Here's a solid question. Dave says, do you think starting a separate Instagram account from your personal account is a good idea? Do you think IG is a more useful tool than the dating apps, as in worth putting more time into? All right. Interesting question. So, there is certainly a school of thought that Instagram is now the biggest dating app out there. Okay, and if you look at people like the Tates and you look at somebody like Joe Lampton, who I interviewed on this channel a little while back, you will see those guys frequently saying, yeah, you know, it's all about Instagram these days. It's all about the DMs, sliding into the DMs, etc., etc., etc. So on that sense, yes, but you need to obviously make sure that the pictures are very good, and you kind of need to be doing the stories and things like that, pushing new content through. What they say, and I'm not an Instagram game expert, but what people like Joe say is that you should basically just choose your best pictures. And even if you've only got 10 pictures or 6 pictures on your page, if they are really awesome pictures that show you in a very good light, then that's better than having hundreds of pictures, but they are not particularly good. Okay, so you want decent pictures that show you, in decent settings, like expensive restaurants, maybe at the shops, maybe in a nice club or an outdoor, bar or something like that. Something in a nice dress shirt is always good. You can, if you're into the sort of, if your rig is in tip-top condition, then you can do maybe an abs type shot or something like that. There are resources out there in order to learn more about Instagram game, for sure. Stories are important because I think more and more these days people are looking at stories as opposed to looking on the wall at the posts themselves. So make sure that you're doing stories regularly. But having said all of that, I also have friends who don't have particularly flashy Instagrams, but they use it as a contact tool. So when they meet a girl, maybe in the daytime or whatever, they'll say, look, let's exchange numbers. And she might say, well, I don't normally give my number out to people I don't know. You say, okay, fine, well, let's connect on Instagram. And then you can just DM her on Instagram anyway. And in the meantime, she gets to have a look at you. And if you've got a few pictures on there, they're not particularly flashy. You're not at the Ritz or anything like that, but she can see that you're a regular guy, you're normal, you've got friends, you're not a serial killer. Then that's cool. That can work equally well, because if she liked you in the flesh, then, you know, as long as you don't disqualify yourself through your Instagram, then that's still a good thing. As far as meeting girls on Instagram is concerned, I think you kind of need to ensure that your profile is tip top in order to get real traction. And the other thing as well is to say, Joe Lampson, who has a whole book about meeting girls on Instagram, and I should drop the link below because I do have an affiliate link for it actually. It's kind of a short book, as Joe tends to write, but it's pretty sharp from what I can see in terms of what he's saying. And yeah, I mean, he is talking about messaging 40 girls a day. 40, 50 girls a day on Instagram in order to get traction. And he talks about, you know, find a cool venue that's local to you, follow some of the guys there, you know, some of the cool mover and shaker guys, then look at the girls that follow them, follow those girls, and then start commenting on their stories. And he's sometimes chatting with, you know, as I say, 40 girls a day. So like with anything, there's no free lunch. I mean, yes, if you've got a superstar profile, you've got 120,000 followers or something like that, and you've got a blue check mark and you know, you look awesome, then you're going to get some passive activity from that. But for the most part, you're probably not. So should you spend a lot of time on it? I'd maybe spend a bit of time on it, but I personally wouldn't make it your main focus unless you think that you've got a lifestyle of the kind that is really going to get cut through traction on there. And I think a lot of guys, quite frankly, don't, myself included. So that's kind of my thoughts on it. But as a way to connect, as a tool to message, I think it's absolutely fine. You are by far the best in this area. Thank you very much. I'm not sure which area he's talking about, but thank you. Let's have. All right, okay. So reading the Charisma Myth, since you recommended it, pretty good read. Yes, the Charisma Myth by a lady called Caban, is her surname, is very much worth reading. So get that, and also The Art of Seduction by Robert Greene as well. He talks about charisma in that book in a more manner that's more appropriate perhaps to the seducer, and he has some really great points to make as well. So those two books are very good. There are also lots of videos and things you can watch online. If you look for John Antonakis, University of Lausanne, he's one of the leading lights of research into charisma, so you can follow him and look at his stuff. He's got a TED Talk, which is good. Lots and lots of stuff out there for sure that you can have a look at. Let's have another look. How do you escalate in a conversation? Well, you can escalate both. And by escalate, by the way, what he means is move things on. That is to say, you know, it's all very well having a conversation with a girl, but of course, if you have an outcome in mind, that is to say you are attracted to her and you want to be more than friends, then you need to find ways to move it in that direction. And broadly speaking, there are two ways of doing that. One is verbally and the other is physically, okay? Verbally, you need to be dropping in what is called, or what are called, spikes. That is to say, you need to be spiking up the conversation with innuendo, with flirtation, with suggestive little comments, okay, that are raising this above the level of merely just a friend-to-friend conversation, okay? Now, it's not about being crude, it's not about being hilariously funny, but it is about just dropping in those little things. And you can strengthen this up with eye contact, with a raise of the eyebrows, a wry smile, whatever, you know, those kinds of things. Don't go too Roger Moore, but you know the kind of thing I mean. These things will raise the conversation above the level of this is just an ordinary chit chat, okay? Because that's what you want to do. You know, it's all very well opening and it's all very well having conversations, and that's better than 99.9% of the population. But ultimately, you've got to indicate in some way that you know there's some sexual interest there. You've got to try and ignite that chemistry, right? And the best way to do that is with spikes. So that is to say, innuendos, little things with double meanings, flirtatiousness. You know, you can say you're really pretty, you're really cute, thus outwardly, overtly signaling your attraction. You know, all of those things are good. And touch as well. Now, touch, again, please don't be creepy. I'm not talking about anything weird, but just normal social touch is really, really helpful. So you can, as you're talking, you can touch on the lower arm. You might touch on the shoulder to make a point. You know, the sooner that you can bring touch into the equation, the better. As I say, nothing inappropriate, guys. Don't be going over the top. Don't be doing anything weird or creepy. But normal social touch, breaking the touch barrier is really important, and that also escalates things. But I go into this in much more detail in Charisma and Dating Academy, so you can look out for that on Friday. AM again. Salutations and blessings from Nairobi. I'm a new subscriber and I'm binging on your videos like a mofo. Many thanks, man. I really appreciate that. I hope all is going well for you over in Kenya at the moment. Thanks so much for the comments. Blah, blah, blah. Getting very choppy. You're in outer space now. Yes, I did just go into outer space for a little while. All right, so Leo says, thinking about my frame, I've become interested in a girl based on looks, outfit, swagger, but not fully attracted until she proves she has the traits I want. Well, that's an interesting comment, isn't it? Because generally speaking, we kind of think of guys as being very physically attracted. And I mean, we are, that's true. But what Leo is saying is slightly different in that there are other things that make her particularly appealing. And he talks about the traits. He doesn't say what the particular traits are for him. But broadly speaking, I would agree with this, really. And I think the thing about girls and meeting different girls is this. You could be attracted to a large range of different girls, of different types, of different looks, of, whatever, different styles. But there are a few who sort of get further through the filter, who you get really into. And it's not always about looks. Okay, it's not always, oh, she was incredibly beautiful, so therefore I liked her more than this other girl who was less beautiful. And it's not necessarily a strict totem pole based on just physical attraction, okay? That could be a big part of it, but it's not always just that. It is these other things. It's these other traits, okay? And when I think about girls that I've become close to over the years, who've become a girlfriend or somebody that I spend a lot of time with, or more time with than normal, it would be more to do with these other qualities rather than just their looks, because there is something intangible about chemistry. Okay, I did a video the other week saying, is chemistry real or not? And I was being a bit provocative, or perhaps in the title, but I think chemistry is real, and you can ignite it to some extent. And what game tactics or what these principles do is help you to kind of ignite chemistry, and that's, I think, really what game is, particularly with those girls who fall into that maybe category. So they're not instantly just attracted to you, they're not instantly not attracted to you, whether it's just an outright rejection. They're somewhere in the middle. They're kind of like, yeah, this guy's could be all right, but I'm not sure. And with those girls, your job or the task at hand, if you like, is to ignite chemistry, or to do things that are likely to ignite chemistry, so that that builds between you, and then it's a win-win for both of you. It's a great situation. Okay. So yes, I think it's true from the male point of view that it's not just about looks, and equally that's true from the female to male point of view as well. Some say it's more true. Some people, it's a truism that women are less visually driven than guys are. I'm not exactly sure quite how true that is. I think it's perhaps less the case than some people would have you believe. I think women are very visually driven, like guys are. But I also think it's true that personality does count, and so this is where I differ from these black pill dudes who are sort of like, well, no, if you don't have this jawline and you don't have, whatever it is, then you may as well give up because you are destined to be alone forever. I don't believe that to be the case, because I've seen far too much evidence contrary to that in my own life and in the lives of other people that I know and that I've worked with and that I've coached and all of this kind of stuff. So to say that the way in which you come across or the traits that you have has nothing to do with it is not accurate. But yes, I think that male to female interest is not just about looks either. Certainly not for a longer term thing. I mean, possibly for a very short term thing. Yes, she's very attractive. Yes, you want to get with her. Fine. Of course that happens. And then you realize that she's crazy and you don't want to be with her longer term. But for you to be with her longer term, there has to be something more about it for sure. This is a good question. Antonio says, what are good books, sources to improve storytelling? So the thing about this, right, is we talk a lot about storytelling. You know, you've got to be able to tell stories. If you can tell a good story, then that is going to draw women to you. And this is something that I talk about a lot. And then guys will say, we'll ask this question. Okay, so how do I learn? To be honest, I'm not sure that there is a very good source to recommend for this particular form of storytelling. Okay. And actually, I'm thinking of doing my own product about this. And I did ask, actually, I think on my email list recently, if people would be interested in that. And some guys came back and said yes. But, you know, if you'd be interested in a course or a short course or a book on storytelling and how to do storytelling for dating and for game, stick a 1 in the chat. Just let me know, because it is something that I'm thinking about doing. And this isn't just to, you know, feather my own nest. This is because I think there is a bit of a gap in the market for this. So if you're interested in storytelling and you're interested in maybe some content or a little course or a book on storytelling, then put a 1 in the chat and let me know. I'd be really interested to know, because it is something I'm thinking about. The thing with books about storytelling is that they tend to focus on the technical side of things. So I also write, you know, I've written my books about dating and so on, but I also have an interest in writing fiction, and I do have a broader interest in, you know, how stories are constructed and things. So I've read quite a few books about storytelling, but they are very technical, and they're from the point of view of how is a narrative constructed that will create an entertaining piece of art. So there's a lot of books, for example, about screenwriting, about storytelling for screenwriting. A good one is called, there's Story by Robert McKee, which is really, really good. There is Kill the Cat, which is a really, really great book. Funny title, really great book. I forget the author, but look up Kill the Cat, and you will see a great book there about storytelling for screen. There is also The Hero's Journey by Vogler, which is a really, really great book about myth, and how myth is sort of the underlying structure that a lot of our modern stories are based on. So even the most futuristic modern films, if you look at them and you analyze them, tend to have this kind of mythic structure underlying them. And then, of course, you've got what's the book by Campbell? Hero with a Thousand Faces by Joseph Campbell is the archetypal book about that stuff. And it even goes back to Aristotle. If you look at the Poetics by Aristotle, he talks about drama. He talks about how drama is constructed, and a lot of storytelling, even like Hollywood storytelling, actually goes back to Aristotle, which is a couple of thousand years ago. So there is a whole wealth of information out there about storytelling. But the problem is, while this stuff is really interesting, and I would recommend any of those books because it's great stuff, but it's not necessarily going to help you in the Vegas nightclub or at the Cancun pool party, because what you are being tasked with delivering in that scenario is not a well-crafted 3-act screenplay. You know, instead you're talking to a girl from Wyoming who's 23 and maybe she's taken some Molly, and you know, it's a different sort of storytelling. Okay, and it's closer to what actually Tom Torero used to call verbal bamboozling. Maybe he still does call it that. And he would talk about Russell Brand as being a great example of somebody who does verbal bamboozling, who can talk and talk and talk and kind of hold people wrapped in the narrative that he's expounding. And it is a slightly different skill set, although the same basic principles actually do apply, because a story should have a beginning, a middle, and an end. It should have a protagonist. It should have an antagonist. There should be a goal, etc., etc. So that was a very long-winded answer to say that I don't really know, and I'm going to create my own resource on storytelling. But I hope you understand what I mean. The storytelling stuff that's out there, to my knowledge, if anyone can suggest anything that they think is good, then put it in the chat. But the storytelling material that's out there tends to be geared towards writers. It tends to be quite technical. What is useful, or can be quite useful, is things like improv classes and stand-up comedy classes. Okay. I've done improv classes and I found them quite helpful. I I haven't done a stand-up comedy class, but I can see how that would be helpful, because you have to think on your, well, I suppose stand-up you don't because you're writing it beforehand, but you have to think, how do I engage an audience? How do I speak to live people and keep their attention? Okay. And that can be a valuable thing to do. The other thing to have a look at is, I think it's in the game, actually, because what we used to talk about was what are called DHV stories, demonstration of higher value stories. And there has been some writing about how to create good DHV stories, because what you really want to do, or what Mystery at the time said you should do, is to hit those notes of what is an attractive guy. So it's something like competitive, leader of men, sexually attractive to other women, and all this kind of stuff. So if you can create a few stories that hit those notes, that show you in a good light in terms of the certain particular things that women find attractive, that can be really valuable when you go out. And what people used to do was to write their own. So they'd sit at home and they'd actually spend time and actually write out a paragraph of their DHV stories, and they kind of memorize them, or maybe not word for word, but they would have them in mind, so that when they went to the club, they were able to just tell the story off pat. And actually, I've done this in the past, and it really, really works. Okay. And this isn't about cheesy lines, because you can really personalize it. In fact, you should personalize it. It should come from you. It should be your own experience. But if you think back on your life and you think about some of the interesting things that have happened to you, and then look in Mystery Method and look in the game at the real attraction triggers that women have, which tend to be like social proof, your ability to lead and to dominate socially. There are various other ones. You'd have to go and look back at them. And you can find a way to make your story hit those notes, then that's a really great story to tell. And you can craft your own. And having them in the back of your mind or in your back pocket is actually not a bad thing to do. I remember one time I was out in a bar in London and I told a pre-prepared story, and I remember the girl, and I was talking to, actually, there were three girls, the main girl and then her two of her friends, and they're all like listening to this story and kind of lapping it up. And I remember the girl saying to me, you really know how to talk to girls, don't you? And I was like, yes, I do, because I learned it on the internet. I'm only joking, but I was thinking, well, yes, because this was actually prepared and it's actually worked, in the sense that I was able to hold their attention, I was able to lead the interaction, etc., etc., and that is a very powerful thing to be able to do. So let's leave that one for now, but that is something I'll be coming back to for sure. What I found actually is just doing these videos and just talking and doing podcasts and things has really helped me, because obviously I have to think on my feet to some extent in order to produce this content. So that's a sort of peripheral benefit of doing this job. If you're not doing this job, then one thing you can do is to record yourself anyway, either on video or just audio, talking about different things. And I've often said to clients, select keywords, talk about them for a period of time, just set your phone for a minute, record, talk about it, make up a story about it, and just practice, just get into the routine of doing it, okay? Anyway, that was quite a long answer. Okay, sorry, Bruno. Is hard short-term coaching or soft long-term coaching better? Well, what I do, I haven't done 3 months. I would be open to doing 3 months if you're interested. So send me an email, troy@realtroyfrancis.com. Drop me an email and we can discuss it. What I do is a 1-week immersion program where I meet up with the client and maybe we stay together in a city. I mean, typically in Europe, we would stay together somewhere like Prague or Poland in an Airbnb. We would go out for 5 hours a day and we would do approaches, and then we would debrief and spend the evening, have something to eat, spend the evening together talking about it, etc., etc. That kind of immersive structure I find to be really, really helpful for clients, and that can certainly work very well. Or I do longer term work with people where it's not as intensive, but we're meeting once a week, or we're speaking on Skype or Zoom now once a week. And I'm getting them to do exercises and we're working through. I would say both can work really well. It kind of depends where you are, not just geographically, but where you are in terms of your skill level. So if you are relatively new and you just want a crash course, then an immersive experience can work really well, like a 1 week or even longer than that. If you wanted to, if you've kind of started the wheels moving already, but you just want some support, then longer term can work really well. The bottom line is both of them can work. In the end, it's about you taking the action. If you feel you need a bit of an extra kind of a kick and you've got the time and you've got the resources, then certainly I would recommend doing something intensive, because that can really like kickstart things for you. So I think it kind of depends. Both are effective. It's really down to you and thinking about your specific needs and what you can throw at it in terms of time and resources at this particular point in time. But if you want more on that, just drop me an email, Troy, and anybody else watching this, troy@realtroyfrancis.com, and we can discuss your personal situation, obviously offline. Quite a few ones in the chat, which is good. So I will certainly look at. I'll certainly look at creating something about storytelling coming up. Okay, Stefan, it's over, Troy. Black pill. If you don't have the looks, you are screwed. Bro, women are visual AF. They look at you. Just make a shower. I'm not sure what he means by just make a shower. But key 3-second eye contact. It's over, guys. I have ropes. That's a little bit dark. I mean, look, okay. Well, if you think that, then you think that. That's fine. But my experience is not that. I'm going to take I have ropes off the screen, because I think that's a little bit dark. That's not my experience. Okay, maybe that's his experience. I don't know. It just doesn't make sense. Well, there's two things, right? Firstly, is that true or not? I don't believe it's true. If you believe it's true and you want to go along with that, then fine, go along with that. But what are you going to do for the next 40 years until you die? Are you just going to sit in your basement and cry? Are you just going to complain about it? I mean, if that's what you want to do, I guess it's your life. You can do whatever you want. For me personally, I've always been of the mind of, look, this is the situation. This is how things are out there. I want to enjoy this brief period that I have as a conscious human being on this planet before I die, before the world is destroyed in the heat death of the universe and all consciousness is lost. I kind of want to have a good time. So I would like to look for ways around issues and challenges and problems. I'd like to look for, ways that I can hack the system a little bit. Are there different ways? And this goes for dating, it goes for business, it goes for lots of, all different areas of life, really. Because, I'm here, I want to kind of enjoy it. I want to have as good a time as I possibly can. And I want to get the things that I want to get. So that's why I've spent all of this time researching this stuff, trying to be exploring this stuff, and kind of like looking at it, creating content about it as part of my journey, part of my exploration, because I want to find those ways of getting around it, beating the system, if you like. And that's what game is about. Game is about beating the system, okay? Is it just about looks? No, it isn't, because as I've said many times on this channel, I went from being a sexless virgin who had no traction with women whatsoever to overnight almost having a lot of success because of the way that I presented myself, okay? And as I've shared here before, that was in a large part down to the use of alcohol and other substances, and I don't recommend this to anybody. Get on Charisma and Dating Academy instead, because that will shortcut you to it, and you won't have to mess up your early life like I did, and then become a sober, recovering person who now doesn't touch that stuff and hasn't for a long time. But I got into very debauched partying. I was drinking a lot. I was doing these other substances. I became very cocky. I became very sort of like red pill, if you like. I mean, I became very dark triad in many ways. And guess what? I started to attract a lot of different girls to me, and that went on for a very long period of time. Did my looks change? No. Did my height change? No. Did I get more ripped? No. Did I get more rich? No. None of those things it changed. but my success rate, if you want to call it that, and that's a little bit crude, I understand that, but just to make things easy, my success rate changed exponentially overnight. Okay, so I just cannot buy into the it's only looks, bro argument, because that's not my life experience. And it's also, by the way, not the life experience of many people that I've worked with and many clients that I've had, and etc., etc., etc. Okay, do looks matter? Yeah, absolutely. Which is why you should seek to improve the way that you look by working out, by good grooming, by looking after your skin, by getting a good haircut, by clothes, fashion, all that stuff. Yes, absolutely. If you're really, really good looking, you're going to get more buy-in at the beginning of an interaction for sure. Nobody's denying that. But as I said at the beginning of this rant, if you're not of model good looks, if you're not 6'4" and you know kind of Swedish with the jawline and the high cheekbones and everything, what are you going to do? You're just going to sit and complain on the internet for the rest of your life that or are you going to think, well, okay, I've been dealt this particular hand, I'm going to make this work one way or another. Do you know what I mean? And I've always been in the latter camp. So that's what I would recommend. If you don't agree with that, that's fine. There are other channels that you can commiserate on, and you can all hug each other and cry. That's not what I'm about on this channel. That's not what the people that I work with are about. It's a different belief system. I believe that his belief system is the wrong one. I don't think it's accurate. It doesn't mirror my experience of life. But he is welcome to have it. Okay, everyone has a right to have their own belief system. Okay, so I respect that, but it's not my experience of life. A lot of good-looking guys don't have any game. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so heat death of the universe is coming, gentlemen. It may come before. I thought it was coming when the stream cut off. Before, to be honest, I thought this is it. The heat death of the universe. What am I going to do? What degenerate thing can I do for this last couple of minutes of life before the universe is destroyed? But looking out the window, it looks like the universe is still all right. So we've perhaps got a little bit more time. Nietzsche is a good read, but nihilism is not a good lifestyle. Well, look, I mean, I like Nietzsche. I'm a big Nietzsche fan, and in many ways, I'm kind of nihilistic in some ways. I mean, I don't personally. I know Tom's in the chat. Tom is a God-fearing Christian gentleman, and I respect that. I personally don't believe that there is an overarching sort of purpose for life. I kind of think it's a bit random. I think that we're here and then we live for a short time and then we die and that's the end of it. And was there any point to it? Well, not really, no. And I don't believe in things like the soulmate myth and stuff like that. So in many ways, I am quite nihilistic, but I also have a side of me that thinks, well, solid, but while I'm here, I want to kind of enjoy it. Do you know what I mean? I want to kind of have a good time. So how can I have a good time? How can I get into that party that I wasn't supposed to be invited to? But, is there a way I can trick my way in? Can I get in by the back door? Can I climb through the window and have a bit of the fun that those people over there are having? So that's more my attitude to it, and I believe that you can, and that's really the purpose of all of this content, is to help people to do that. Because listen, I'm in my 40s now, so if I'm lucky, I've got another 30 years, I could possibly another 40 years, but like years in which I'm going to be like active and kind of able to do things. Another 20 odd years, maybe, give or take a bit, if I'm lucky. If I don't get run over when I leave the house. So, what are you going to do with that time? As I say, are you going to sit in your basement and cry, or are you going to try and make the best of things? I personally would rather make the best of things. I would rather keep rolling the dice. Okay. So there you go. Leo, is there another part of this question? How important is it to find out about the girl's life and share parts of your life? Well, I think it depends what kind of relationship you want with her. I mean, if you want something that's deeper, then sure, but I think you tend to share more as time goes on, and as you realize that you want something a little bit more long lasting with her. I don't think if it's a very casual thing, if you're kind of like F buddies or fuck buddies, I suppose we can say it now because we're demonetized, then you don't need to share as much. So I think it's just a question of what you want in that particular situation with that particular girl. But my girl, I've shared lots of things with her. She shared stuff with me, and that's part of the joy, really, of being with a woman. That's part of that joy of the experience of female energy and all that stuff that they talk about, is sharing things. You don't have to share everything. It's kind of up to you, and as I say, it really depends on what you want in that particular situation. Atham says, my girlfriend of 7 years cheated on me, so I broke up with her. 2 days later, I was effing a new chick in the back of my SUV. Congratulations, sir. Work on yourselves. Keep that knife sharp, even when you think you don't need it. I'm sorry that happened. That's a bad thing to have happened to you. But this is the reality of life, unfortunately. I mean, guys think I'm in a relationship now, so I'm over the line. I've reached that safe precipice. I can just sit back and coast. Doesn't always work like that, because infidelities happen, breakups happen. It's just the way of the world. So you need to be prepared, okay? I never think that you've reached a safety haven, right? Because you probably haven't, okay? You sometimes reach a precipice, and you can rest there for a bit, but you're always going to have to keep moving on, and you should be moving on. I'm not saying you should leave relationships, but in other ways you should be moving on in your life anyway. And if you don't, then life can give you a kick up the backside, and you're forced to move on with things anyway. Oh dear. How do you go about work, dating, life balance? Commute, work, grocery shopping, workout, and extra study for work leaves you very little time for stuff, and kind of drained on weekdays. Well, no easy answers, really. I mean, it's not always easy. I mean, because I'm now working for myself, I suppose I can. It's not like I have loads of time, but I suppose I can sort of apportion my time in a different way. But I was working in corporate work for a very long time, and I was in this position because I would have to get up very early for work. There were times I'd go to the gym in the morning before work, then I go to work, then I have some stuff to do after work sometimes. Then I'd go home, maybe have to prepare for the next day, obviously eat and things like that, and I'd be really tired. So what do you do? And in the end, the answer is that you have to just make it happen. If you want it badly enough, you're going to find the time. And actually, when I was really, really heavily into day game, I would go out every night after work. I would do approaches in the morning before work, sometimes on the metro, the subway, or the tube, as we call it here, going into work. You can keep these things going. Another thing to point out is that I would always advise, if you want to get really good, you have to be doing as much approaching during the day as you can be. But at the same time, if all you've got time for is one approach a day, or even one approach every couple of days, then just do that, because that's still better than the vast majority of guys on the planet. And as Rolo was saying on Rule Zero at the weekend, even if you only approached a girl a week, at the end of the year, you've approached 52 new girls, which is still more than most men do in their whole lifetime. Okay, cold approaching. So you've got to scale it to what you're able to do in the moment, but also you've got to balance that against thinking, well, how good do I really want to, how much do I really want this? How good do I want to get? And then just basically making the time. So anything's possible, because you always have to remember, if you had a gun pointed to your head, would you be able to do it? Yes, yes, you probably would. So, just think about it like that. With a coldest CC says, how do you use direct approach during day game? Well, the way I see it is that you just walk up to her and you say, listen, I saw you look really cute. I wanted to get to know you. My name's Troy. How are you? And then you shake hands and you get into the conversation. I would class that as a direct approach, because you're making it clear from what you're saying that the reason that you walked up to her and you started talking to her was because you fancy her, because you find her attractive. Okay, so to me that is direct. Indirect would be that you walk up to her and you say, can you tell me where Starbucks is, or can you tell me where McDonald's is? And then she tells you, and then you say, so what's a nice girl like you doing out on a day like this, or something like that. You then got to transition it. So that's what I would say the distinction was. So for me, just going up and telling her your intention is a direct approach. And I mean, I've gone up and said, you're pretty, you're beautiful, you're really cute. I just had to come and talk to you because I knew that if I didn't, I'd be kicking myself. You're sexy, even. You can say things like that if you're feeling a bit ballsy. So, look, I mean, that to me is direct because it's overtly communicating what it is that you want from the conversation, okay? You could also go indirect direct, which is you go up and you say, nice shoes you're wearing. Are they Italian? Or something like that. Or I mean, whatever. But you're making it clear from your demeanor and your eye contact that actually you are flirting with her. And that can work really well as well. So that would be my answer as far as that's concerned. Clothing and style recommendations. I've got actually a video on the channel somewhere about fashion. So have a look at that. That goes through but some basic sort of style recommendations. I mean, fundamentally, it kind of depends on you. It's very personal. But I do lay out some basic foundational principles in that video. So search Troy Francis fashion, and you will find it. And I might do some more stuff on that as well. Troy, you're dodging my question. What was the question? Is it, are you an incel? Tell me what the question was again, because I can't find it. This is an interesting one. Should you record yourself to improve game? Yes, I would say that it is really helpful because I've certainly found it to be really, really helpful. And I've done it for both to improve myself, and I've also done it to create, recordings to put out online. And both, it's helped me in both cases. One of the things actually that's really interesting, I'm not sure if you're just recording yourself for your own purposes to listen to, then maybe this won't apply. It probably won't work in quite the same way. But one thing that's really interesting is that when you record in-field videos, and the idea is that you're going to put them up onto, YouTube or whatever it is, I've often found myself to be more courageous than I would normally be, and actually do more audacious kind of approaches than I would normally do perhaps on my own. And I think the reason for that is because imagine, like, normally when you go and talk to a girl, the reason that you want to talk to her is because you're attracted to her and you want to date her, okay? And if she rejects you, then you're being rejected. You walked up to her, you said you're attracted to her, she's rejected you. So that's kind of messes with your ego on that level. When you're creating a video for other purposes, like to put online, you've got your primary reason is different. Yes, maybe you think she's pretty and you'd like to get to know her, but your primary reason is, I want to create a good video so I can put it online. And that kind of changes the focus a little bit. And especially if you're working with a cameraman and he's being paid, and you've only got a certain amount of daylight and things like this, you find yourself doing really ballsy things because you want it to be good for the recording, okay? And that was quite eye-opening for me because I thought it was going to be doubly nerve-wracking because not only are you making the approach, but you're also being filmed. But actually, I found that my inhibitions were lowered when I was being filmed. So maybe, even though you're recording it, and it's just for your own benefit, it will help you to be a little bit more ballsy than you'd normally be, just because you want to know when you listen back to it that this is going to sound good. But yes, certainly, recording yourself, really helpful, because you're going to hear the mistakes you make. You're going to hear the things that you could have done better, the things that are working well, the things that aren't working, etc., etc. So yeah, 100%. If you can, I would try to do that. C. Joel has come back with his question. I've been pondering, could you elaborate on moving a plate to an LTR, maintaining frame while doing so? Yeah, well, this is the easier way around to do it, okay? Because guys will, it's almost impossible to do it the other way around, which is to present yourself as being the sort of beta provider boyfriend type guy, and then convert her to a plate, that is to say, a less serious girl who's sort of on the periphery but you're not really boyfriend and girlfriend. It's almost impossible to do it that way around, but you can absolutely do it the other way around. And the way that it's always worked for me is primarily non-verbal. That is to say, what I very rarely do, because I don't particularly like doing it, and because I don't think from a game perspective it's the right thing to do, is to sit down and have a big conversation with somebody about where you are and where you're going and what this relationship is and things. So in the case of a plate, so let's say that he has a fuck buddy who he's seeing like once a week or a couple of times a week, and they kind of hang out and they have sex and that's it. All you need to do is start to just up the contact time. You know, maybe she stays over. Maybe you guys hang out on the Saturday morning and you go for some breakfast. Maybe she stays the next day and you make brunch together. You know, and you're just sort of like letting her into your life a little bit more. You don't have to talk about it. You don't have to say, oh, right, so, you know, just to make you aware, we're now going to spend until Saturdays at 12:30 p.m. together. And so that means that you've now been upgraded. You know, she's going to get the idea. She's going to know just from your behavior. So, you know, if you like her and you want to spend more time, you don't have to verbally make a contract. You just have to up the time that you spend with her, okay? And just do some slightly more boyfriendy type things with her. And then you've moved it towards, you know, it will grow within itself, because what tends to happen is people get attached, you know, and girls in particular, you know, you're spending more time with her. Presumably she's enjoying it on a sexual level, and then you're giving her this more comfort as well. You know, because ideally what you want is for her to be locking you down, her saying to you, listen, where's this going? Are we boyfriend and girlfriend, etc., etc., etc. Okay, and the way that you get towards that is giving her the signs. So you are showing her that actually this is more than just us having sex. This is something a bit deeper than that. You know, it doesn't have to be incredibly deep, but you know, maybe you like hanging out. Maybe you could go to the cinema once in a while, something like that. You know, you're just leading in that direction, and then she should do the rest if she's interested. If she isn't, then you're also then that's gonna become apparent, okay? But I try not to verbalize things really unless she brings it up, because it's the wrong frame, okay? But you can indicate to her that you are interested to spend more time together just by, you know, she stays over. Maybe you say, oh, I fancy a bit of breakfast. You go to the local cafe for some breakfast. Maybe you look at some shops together, whatever it is. You know, she's going to get the idea pretty soon that this is moving into a different territory, and you know, then it's likely that she's at some point going to ask you the question of where is this going to, and when that happens, you've held frame because she's the one who sort of pushed it. Okay, I hope that helps. Any thoughts on approaching in the gym? Ooh. He's yeah, that happens sometimes, but pizza is good, so don't worry. Approaching in the gym, this comes up a lot. I think Myron Gaines has got a good video on this, so have a look at his channel. It depends really. I mean, like the gyms I go to, the clientele tends to be pretty sort of like, you don't always see the same people, so it's less of a problem. I think if you're seeing the same people all the time, you've got to be a bit careful, because it's almost like a social circle game, and you know, you're going to be conscious. So I'd say if you go to a gym and you're seeing the same people every time you go there, and you go there regularly and you want to keep going there, I would say probably, you know, just leave it out. You know, don't do your gaming there, just do it somewhere else. If you live somewhere where it's a bit more transitory, like where I am, and there are people, you know, different people each time, and you're less likely to be sort of caught out doing it, if you like, then I would say the best thing is being direct and being discreet. So I wouldn't necessarily walk up to her when she's on the cross trainer or whatever. You know, I would sort of like, if later on she's going to get some water or something like that, look for an opportune moment. You can go and speak to her. There's not loads of people around because you've got to be discreet. Just say to her, hey, listen, I saw you. You know, I have to say, see you here all the time. I just saw you here working out. I think you look really cute. I want to introduce myself. And then fairly quickly just lead it to, listen, it would be great to meet up again, you know, maybe out of here somewhere, we can go for drinks or something. How about we exchange numbers? And just be very discreet, very direct. Try to get it so that you've got her contact details ASAP, and then just go away and carry on with your workout or do whatever you were going to do. And then you don't need to speak to her again then in the gym, but later on you message her and then you're just, you're building up on message. Okay, that's what I would do, because the gym is not really a place to be doing any sort of elaborate like routines or anything like that. And and even if it is a place where you're not seeing the same people all the time, you don't really want to be looking like you're this, you're kind of creepy or something. So I would just get the contact details ASAP, and just get on with your day, and then message her later. I'm going to have to cut this off at some point, guys, because we've been on for nearly 90 minutes now, and I've got a couple of bits to do. But as I say, I think I'm going to do another one tomorrow at the same time. So if you tune in then, you've got more questions. Come back with the questions, and let's carry on with the session. But what else have we got here? Yeah, Will the coldest CC has another point. He says, do you think a lot of guys use red flags as an excuse for their fear with women? Oh, she has a red flag, I could never get with her. Yeah, absolutely, I do. And I did a video on this actually, maybe it was even last week, quite recently. I think it was that video or podcast which was called Red Flags Are Green Lights, which is a term or is a phrase that John MLD used recently, and I quite liked it, so I nicked it for that particular video. But yeah, I think absolutely. I think all these lists of red flags and things like that, again, comes down to what you want. I mean, yeah, if you're looking to get married to her and have 16 kids and live on a farm for the next 40 years, then sure, you need to be a bit discerning. You need to look at those red flags, and you need to, get to the bottom of it. Are these things genuine concerns? Can I really trust this woman? Is this really the right person for me to be contemplating this life together with? But if you're just, for dating and you want to have a bit of fun, a lot of these red flags kind of don't really matter, to be honest, because, who cares? You're not promising lifelong fidelity with her. I mean, obviously take precautions, be careful. I mean, if somebody appears to be really crazy, it's probably not a good thing to pursue, but, within reason. She's got some tattoos or something. I mean, for God's sake, who cares? I personally quite like tattoos on girls. For some reason, guys have a problem with it. I don't really understand why, but it's not a big deal. It doesn't matter. It really, really comes down to what you want in the scenario with that particular girl. DP says, awesome. Thanks, Troy. Appreciate it, man. Appreciate you, sir. Thanks for tuning in. Red flags are green lights is Rob says phrase. Okay, well, yeah, he's a great guy. He knows what he's talking about. And yeah, absolutely, I would agree with that. And he says, see Joel's good info and insight, Troy. Appreciate it. All right, guys, listen, my voice is going a little bit now, I think. So I am going to cut it off. But thanks ever so much for tuning in. I really, really appreciate it. Sorry that the internet went before, the Wi-Fi connection went before. I am getting this stuff upgraded, and I'm going to be upgrading the equipment, so these broadcasts are going to get better. But thanks you guys for bearing with me and for sticking with me during this difficult time of rubbish internet. I will be back tomorrow at the same time, so we'll do more questions. We'll get into some more topics. Looking forward to that. As I said, 2 parish notices. Womanese by Donovan Sharp is available now. Hit the link below. That's my affiliate link, so I do get a cut of it if you purchase the course, so full disclosure. But it is a really good course. I've been through the material. It's fantastic. He goes into all of the different things that women really mean when they speak, so that you will be prepared, which is fantastic. Donovan obviously is a great guy. I've known him for a long time. He's a solid dude. He knows what he's talking about. You also get, I think, lifetime membership to his Sunday webinars, which is great. You also get 50 hours worth of bonus content. So it's an amazing package, as the actress said to the bishop. So get involved with that. You've only got until midnight tonight, EST, so hit that link below. And beyond that, my course, Charisma and Dating Academy, opens up on Friday, the 7th of August, for 5 days for enrollment. Okay, so you've got the 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, and 11th to enroll, which is basically next weekend. So I'll be doing more content about that throughout this week, and get on my email list for that. So there's a link below the Donovan Sharp thing. There's a link to my free daily email list. So get on that, and there'll be more information going out about Charisma and Dating Academy. But that's my course. It will be capped at a certain number of live members, and it is only open for those 5 days. So we'll be talking about that more during the week. But I hope to see you on the inside of that, because we did it earlier in the year and it was fantastic. Guys got loads of value from it, and this quarter is going to be even bigger and better than that. I will leave it there for now. Thank you very much. Come back tomorrow and let's get into some more questions and comments then. All right, see you later. Bye-bye.